Hello and welcome to study session number 14 of Daily Memory Lab. In today's study session, we will do round 4 of e-way bill chapter, page number 9 to 15, and then round 3 of page number 23 to 31 of Supply Under GST, and round 2 of whatever we studied yesterday, page number 57 to 61. And depending upon the time, we will read 5 to 6 fresh pages for the day. Okay, let me start with page number 9 to 15 of e-way bill chapter. But before that, let us set the pre-study intention. I'm going to study for the next 30 to 60 minutes with full focus. In this study session, I lower down all my expectations and embrace imperfection. I may or may not get big breakthroughs in this study session, and I'm totally okay with it. I will most likely make mistakes in the next 30 to 60 minutes, and if I make them, I'm not going to judge myself. I embrace my mistakes and reset my ambitions. My goal is not to achieve perfection. My goal is only to make a tiny progress in the next 30 to 60 minutes. On that note, let us begin. Special situations where e-way bill needs to be issued even if the value of consignment is less than 50,000. Interstate transfer of handicraft goods by a person exempted from obtaining registration. Where handicraft goods are transported from one state or union territory to another state or union territory by a person who has been exempted from the requirement of obtaining registration under clauses 1 and 2 of section 24, then e-way bill shall be generated by the said person irrespective of the value of the consignment. Fourth proviso to rule 138. Handicraft goods are the goods specified in notification number 56 of 2018 CET dated 23/10/2018, which exempts the casual taxable persons making interstate taxable supplies of such handicraft goods from obtaining registration up to specified turnover limit. Okay. E-way bill in case of bill to ship to model. In a bill to ship to model of supply, there are three persons involved in a transactions, namely A, the person who has ordered B to send goods directly to C, B, the person who is sending goods directly to C on behalf of A, and C is the recipient of goods. In this scenario, two supplies are involved, and accordingly two tax invoices are to be issued. Invoice 1, which would be issued by B to A, invoice 2, which would be issued by A to C. It is clarified that as per the CGST rules of 2017, for the movement of goods which is taking place from B to C on behalf of A, either A or B can generate the e-way bill, but it may be noted that only one e-way bill is required to be generated. Okay, so for this leg only you need to generate e-way bill, because in this leg only you have goods moving. Okay, segment number 2, information to be furnished in e-way bill. An e-way bill form GST EWB1 contains two parts. Part A, comprising of details of GSTIN of supplier and recipient, place of delivery indicating PIN code also, document which is either tax invoice, bill of supply, delivery challan or bill of entry, number and date, value of goods, HSN code, and reasons for transportation to be furnished by the registered person who is causing the movement of goods of consignment value exceeding 50,000. Part B, transport details, transport document number, goods receipt number, railway receipt number, airway bill number or bill of lading number, and vehicle number in case of transport by road to be furnished by the person who is transporting the goods. Okay. However, information in Part A may be furnished by the transporter on an authorization received from such registered person. First proviso to Rule 138, Sub Rule 1, or by the e-commerce operator or courier agency where the goods to be transported or supplied through such an e-commerce operator or a courier agency on an authorization received from the consignor. Second proviso to Rule 138, 1. Once the consignor consignee details enters all the details in Part A of the e-way bill, a Part A slip is generated which contains a temporary number. This slip can be shared with the transporter or used by the supplier himself later to enter the details in Part B of e-way bill and generate the e-way bill. This will be useful when supplier has prepared invoice relating to his business transaction but does not have the transportation details. Thus, he can enter invoice details in Part A of the e-way bill and keep it ready for entering details of mode of transportation in Part B of e-way bill when the transporter is finalized. Once the goods are ready for movement from the business premises and transport details are known, the user can enter the Part B details and generate the e-way bill for movement of goods. E-way bill can be generated only after entering the details of Part B. Okay. Who is mandatorily required to generate e-way bill? E-way bill is to be generated by the consignor or consignee himself. If the transportation is being done in own or hired conveyance or by railways, by air, or by vessel. If the goods are handed over to a supplier for transportation by road, e-way bill is to be generated by the transporter, where neither the consignor nor consignee generates the e-way bill and the value of goods is more than 50,000. It shall be responsibility of the transporter to generate it. This has been explained below. Where the goods are transported by a registered person, whether as consignor or recipient as the consignee, whether in his own conveyance or a hired one or a public conveyance or by road, the said person shall have to generate e-way bill. 138 sub rule 2, where the e-way bill is not generated by the registered person and the goods are handed over to the transporter for transportation of goods by road. In this situation, the registered person shall furnish the information relating to the transporter in Part B of the common portal on the common portal, and e-way bill shall be generated by the transporter on the said portal on the basis of information furnished by the registered person in Part A, Rule 138(3). The registered person shall furnish the information related to the transporter. Where the e-way bill is not generated by the registered person and the goods are handed over to the transporter for transportation by road. In this case, if goods are handed over to a transporter for transportation, e-way bill is to be generated by the transporter. Here they are saying the registered person shall furnish information relating to transporter in Part B on the common portal and the e-way bill shall be generated by the transporter. Okay, in the first case, the buyer or seller should generate e-way bill. In the second case, transporter is supposed to generate e-way bill. E-way bill shall be generated by the transporter on the said portal on the basis of the information furnished by the registered person in Part A. Okay, 138(3). Where the goods are transported by railways or by air or by vessel, the e-way bill shall be generated by the registered person, being the supplier or the recipient, who shall, either before or after the commencement of movement, furnish information in Part B, viz. Transport document number, goods receipt number or railway receipt number or airway bill or bill of lading number on the common portal. 138(2)(a). Where the goods are transported by railways, there is no requirement to carry e-way bill along with the goods, but railways has to carry invoice or delivery challan or bill of supply, as the case may be, along with goods. Further, e-way bill generated for the movement is required to be produced at the time of delivery of the goods. Railways shall not deliver goods unless the e-way bill required under rules is produced at the time of delivery, proviso to Rule 138 sub Rule 2A. The registered person or transporter may at his option generate and carry the e-way bill even if the value of consignment is less than 50,000, first proviso to Rule 138(3). Where the movement is caused by an unregistered person, either in his own conveyance or a hired one or through a transporter, he or the transporter may at their option generate the e-way bill, second proviso to Rule 138(3). Where the goods are supplied by an unregistered supplier to a recipient who is registered, movement shall be said to be caused by the recipient if the recipient is known at the time of commencement of movement of goods. Explanation 1 to Rule 138(3). When it is not mandatory to furnish the details of conveyance in Part B, e-way bill is valid for movement of goods by road only when the information is in Part B is furnished. Exceptions, however, details of conveyance may not be furnished in Part B of the e-way bill where the goods are transported for a distance up to 50 kilometers within the state or union territory from the place of business of the consignor to the place of business of the transporter for further transportation, or from the place of business of the transporter finally to the place of business of the consignee. Unique e-way bill number. Upon generation of the e-way bill on the common portal, a unique e-way bill number shall be made available to the supplier, recipient, and the transporter on the common portal. 138 Subrule 4. Transfer of goods from one conveyance to another. Where the goods are transferred from one conveyance to another, the consignor or the recipient who has provided information in Part A or the transporter before such transfer and further movement of goods update the details of conveyance in Part B of the e-way bill on the common portal. Okay. Consignment of goods may be required to be transferred from the original conveyance due to unforeseen exigencies like breakdown of the vehicle. In such case, the transporter transferring goods from one conveyance to another in the course of transit shall before such transfer and further movement of goods update the details of the conveyance. So the transporter has to update the details. Okay. In some cases, consignments are transported by the transporter through transshipment using multiple vehicles, that is same mode of transportation, for carrying the same consignment before it is delivered to the recipient at the place of destination. Hence, for each movement from one place to another, the transporter needs to update the vehicle number in which he is transporting the consignment in Part B of the e-way bill. Okay, the user can update Part B vehicle details as many times as he wants for movement of goods to the destination. However, the updating should be done within the validity period. There can also be a case where one e-way bill can go through multiple modes of transportation before reaching destination. As per modes of transportation, the e-way bill can be updated with the new mode of transportation by using the option of update vehicle number. Okay, we have seen this example quite a few times where one consignment is first sent through road and then it goes through ship, then it goes via air, and then finally it goes via road to reach Chandigarh. So in this situation, each and every time they can go and change the mode of transportation by using this update vehicle number option. Okay, assigning the e-way bill number to another transporter. The consignor or recipient who has furnished information in Part A or the transporter may assign the e-way bill number to another transporter, another registered or enrolled transporter for updating information in Part B for further movement of consignment. 138 5A. However, once the details of the conveyance have been updated by the transporter in Part B, the consignor or recipient, as the case may be, who has furnished the information in Part A, shall not be allowed to assign the e-way bill number to another transporter. Proviso to Rule 138 5A. A consignor is required to move goods from city X to city Z. He appoints transporter A for movement of goods. Transporter A moves goods from city X to city Y. For completing the movement of goods from city Y to city Z, transporter A now hands over goods to transporter B. Thereafter, goods are moved to the destination from city Y to city Z by transporter B. In such a scenario, only one e-way bill would be required. Part A can be filled by the consignor and then the e-way bill will be assigned by the consignor to transporter A. Transporter A will fill the vehicle details in Part B and move the goods from city X to city Y. On reaching city Y, transporter A will assign the said e-way bill to transporter B. Transporter B will be able to update the details of Part B. Transporter B will fill the details of his vehicle and move the goods from city Y to city Z. Okay, consolidated e-way bill. After e-way bill has been generated where multiple consignments are intended to be transported in one conveyance, the transporter may indicate the serial number of e-way bills generated in respect of each such consignment electronically on the common portal, and a consolidated e-way bill in Form GST EWB 02 may be generated by him on the said common portal prior to the movement of goods. Rule 138 6. Consolidated e-way bill is a document containing the multiple e-way bills for multiple consignments being carried in one conveyance, that is goods vehicle. That is, the transporter carrying multiple consignments of various consignors and consignees in a single vehicle can generate and carry a single document. Consolidated e-way bill instead of carrying separate document for each consignment in a conveyance. Consolidated e-way bill is like a trip sheet and it contains details of different e-way bills in respect of various consignments being transported in one vehicle, and these e-way bills will have different validity periods. Hence, consolidated e-way bill does not have any independent validity period. Further, individual consignment specified in the consolidated e-way bill should reach the destination as per the validity period of the individual e-way bill. Further, where the consignor or consignee has not generated the e-way bill in Form GST EWB1 and the aggregate amount of the consignment value of the goods carried in conveyance is more than 50,000, the transporter, except in case of transportation of goods by railways, air, vessel, shall, in respect of interstate supply, generate the e-way bill in Form GST EWB1 on the basis of invoice or bill of supply or delivery challan as the case may be, and may also generate a consolidated e-way bill in Form GST EWB02 on the common portal prior to the movement of goods. The generation of Form GST EWB02 is optional and not mandatory. However, where the goods to be transported are supplied through an e-commerce operator or a courier agency, the information in Part A of Form GST EWB1 may be furnished by such e-commerce operator or courier agency. 138.7 Proviso to Rule 138.7. This proviso is not yet effective. Okay. 8th point. Information submitted for e-way bill can be used for filing GST returns. The information furnished in Part A of the e-way bill shall be made available to the registered supplier on the common portal, who may utilize the same for furnishing the details in Form GSTR 1, Rule 138, Subrule 8. However, when the information has been furnished by an unregistered supplier or unregistered recipient, he shall be informed electronically if the mobile number or the email is available. Proviso to 138 Subrule 8. Cancellation of e-way bill. Where an e-way bill has been generated but goods are either not transported or are not transported as per the details furnished in the e-way bill, the e-way bill may be cancelled electronically on the common portal within 24 hours of generation of the e-way bill. Rule 138 Subrule 9. However, an e-way bill cannot be cancelled if it has been verified in transit in accordance with provisions of Section 1 of Rule 138B. First proviso to Rule 138.9. Further, unique e-way bill number generated is valid for a period of 15 days for updation of Part B. Second proviso to Rule 138 Subrule 9. Okay, so we have completed the first task for the day, which is round 4 of e-way bill, page number 9 to 15 we have completed. Now let us go to the next segment of today's revision, which is page number 23 to 31 of Supply Under GST. Now let us talk about meaning of supply made in the course or furtherance of business. We read till here yesterday. Now let us read from here. Business includes any activity or transaction which is incidental or ancillary to any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, adventure, wager, bet, or any other similar activity. In addition, any activity undertaken by the central government or a state government or any local authority in which they are engaged as public authority shall also be construed as business. For any trade, commerce, or any other similar activity to qualify as business, frequency, volume, continuity, or regularity of such transaction or obtaining pecuniary benefit from it is not a prerequisite. Some of the examples you can see. Rishabh buys a car for his personal use and after a year sells it to a car dealer. Sale of car by Rishabh to car dealer is not a supply under GST Act because the said supply is not made by Rishabh in the course or furtherance of business. Manikarnika sold her old gold bangles and earrings to Abhushan jewelers. Sale of old gold jewelry by an individual to a jeweler will not constitute supply, as the same cannot be said to be in the course or furtherance of business of the individual. Since business includes vocation, therefore, supply of goods or service as a vocation is also supply under GST. Sundaram Acharya, a famous actor, paints some paintings and sells them. The consideration from such sale is to be donated to a charitable trust, Kind Human. The sale of paintings by the actor qualifies as supply as it is made in the course or furtherance of business. Facilities provided by the club or association to its members for consideration are provided in the course or furtherance of business. A resident welfare association provides the service of depositing the electricity bills of the residents against some nominal charges. The provision of such service by the club or association or society to its members is included in the definition of business. Admission of persons to any premises for a consideration is also included in business. Services by way of admission to circus, cinema halls, amusement parks, including theme parks, water parks, etc., are considered as supply, as these are services by way of admission of persons to any premises for a consideration. Business includes activities of a race club, including by way of totalizator or a licensed bookmaker, or activities of a licensed bookmaker in such a club. Royal Turf Race Club is engaged in facilitating the wagering or transactions on horses placed through totalizator. For providing the service of facilitating wagering transactions, Royal Turf Race Club gets commission, which is deducted and retained by the club from the total bet value. Said services amount to supply, as the activities of a race club are included in business. Okay. Totalizator. Bookmaker is a person who accepts and pays off debts on sporting and other events at agreed upon odds. Totalizator is a device showing the number and amount of bets staked on a race to facilitate the division of the total among those backing the winner. There is one exception to this course or furtherance of business rule, that is import of services for a consideration. From the above discussion, it can be inferred that if an activity or transaction satisfy all the above parameters as discussed in points A, B and C above, said activity or transaction qualifies as supply under GST. In the subsequent paras, we have discussed the exceptions to two parameters of supply, namely supply made for consideration but not in the course or furtherance of business, supply made without consideration. Importation of services for consideration, whether or not in course or furtherance of business. The connotation of supply gets expanded significantly through the second part of section 7, subsection 1, clause B, which brings within the ambit of supply the importation of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. This is the only exception to the condition of supply being made in the course or furtherance of business. Ramaiah, a proprietor, has received the architect services for his personal residence from an architect located in New York at an agreed consideration of 5,000. The import of services by Ramaiah is supply under section 7(1)(b), section 7, subsection 1, clause B, though it is not in the course or furtherance of business. So, if you have imported a service from a foreign supplier located outside the country for a consideration, then yes, it is a supply, whether or not it is in the course or furtherance of business. Activities without consideration, deemed supply. Permanent transfer or disposal of assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25 when made in the course or furtherance of business, provided that gifts not exceeding 50,000 rupees in value in a financial year by an employer to an employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or services or both. Supply of goods by a principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal, or by an agent to his principal, where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal. Import of services by a person from a related person or from any of his establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of business. Whenever you receive a service with consideration, it doesn't matter whether you are related person or unrelated person, whether you are receiving it in the course of business or not in the course of business, it is to be considered as supply. But when you import services from a related person without consideration, you have to see whether it accounts to supply or not. Similarly, when you receive or import services from a related person or a distinct person for a consideration, what is the outcome that we will see. So in this previous segment, whether in course or not in the course of furtherance of business, if you import services for consideration, then it has to be considered as supply. Here there are 4 activities that are given. Even if they are done without consideration, they will be deemed as supply. Let us see the analysis. As seen earlier, section 7 subsection 1 clause C provides that supply includes the activities specified in schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. Thus, there are activities or transactions which are treated as supply even if they are made without consideration. These are specifically mentioned in schedule 1 appended to the CGST Act. The same has been discussed in subsequent paras. In the past indirect tax regime, in every statute, consideration played the most important role for levying taxes. For instance, if any service was provided for free to a person, such service was not subject to service tax. However, under GST, the condition of consideration has been dispensed with in certain cases. This is an important departure from the earlier indirect tax regime. As per Schedule 1, in the following 4 cases, activities made without consideration will be treated as supply under Section 7. Permanent transfer or disposal of business assets, Para 1 of Schedule 1. Any kind of disposal or transfer of business assets made by an entity on permanent basis, even though without consideration, it qualifies as supply. However, it is important to note that this provision would apply only if input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Therefore, in order to qualify as supply under this para, following conditions need to be satisfied. There must be a disposal or transfer of business assets. Transfer or disposal must be permanent. ITC must have been availed on such business assets. In view of the last condition stipulated above, permanent transfer or disposal of following business assets without consideration will not be covered within this para and thus will not be deemed supply when business assets on which the ITC is blocked are not available under GST. Business assets, though eligible for ITC, has not availed the ITC. The registered person has not availed the ITC. It is important to note that the term business asset has not been defined under the GST law. Dhruv gives old laptops being used in his business to his friend free of cost. This will qualify as supply provided input tax has been availed by Dhruv on such laptops. A dealer of air conditioners permanently transfers the motor vehicle free of cost. ITC on said motor vehicle is blocked. The transaction will not constitute a supply as the condition of availment of ITC on the business asset transferred is not fulfilled. Okay, this clause is wide enough to cover transfer of business assets from holding company to subsidiary company for nil consideration. Supply between related persons or distinct persons, Para 2 of Schedule 2. So we are going to talk about this supply of goods or services between related persons or distinct persons. So we need to understand who is a related person and who is a distinct person. Okay, provided supply of goods or services are both between related persons or distinct persons as specified in section 25 will qualify as supply even if made without consideration, provided it is made in the course or furtherance of business. Let us understand the term related persons and distinct persons. A person who is under influence of another person is called a related person, like members of the same family. Related person, a person who is under influence of another person, is called a related person, like members of the same family or subsidiaries of a group company, etc. Under GST law, various categories of related persons have been specified. The term related person has been defined in explanation to section 15. The said definition has been depicted by way of a diagram as follows. Persons, including legal person, are deemed as related persons if such persons are officers, directors of one another's business. Such persons are legally recognized partners. Such persons are employer or employee. A third person controls, owns directly or indirectly more than or equal to 25% voting stock shares or both of them. One of them controls directly or indirectly the other. A third person controls directly or indirectly both of them. Such persons together control a third person. Such persons are members of the same family. One of them is the sole agent or sole distributor or sole concessionaire of the other. Ms. Priya holds 30% shares of ABC Limited and 35% shares of XYZ Limited. ABC Limited and XYZ Limited are related. Q Limited has a deciding role in corporate policy, operations management, and quality control of R Limited. It can be said that Q Limited controls R Limited, thus, Q Limited and R Limited are related. Distinct persons specified under section 25. Before we go through the statutory provisions of distinct persons, let us first have an overview of the registration provisions for better understanding of the concept of distinct persons. Detailed and in-depth analysis has been given in chapter 9. Under GST law, a supplier is required to obtain state-wise registration. He has to obtain registration in every state or union territory from where he makes a taxable supply, provided his aggregate turnover exceeds a specified threshold limit. Thus, he is not required to obtain registration from a state or union territory where he makes a non-taxable supply. Since registration is in GST is PAN based, once a supplier is liable to register, he has to obtain registration in each of the states or union territory in which he operates and makes a taxable supply under the same PAN. Further, he is normally required to obtain single registration in a state or union territory. However, where he has multiple places of business in a state or union territory, he can get a single registration for the said state or union territory. He may also get a separate registration for any place or places of business in such state or union territory. Now let us understand the concept of distinct persons in simple terms. The establishments of a person with a separate registrations, whether within the same state or in different state, are considered as distinct persons. So let's say I have a factory inside Tamil Nadu and I also have a warehouse inside Tamil Nadu, but they carry separate registrations. Then they will be treated as distinct persons. Another example will be, let's say I have a warehouse in Tamil Nadu and I also have a warehouse in Karnataka. Then again they will be treated as distinct persons because we have two separate registration numbers. Where a person having one registered establishment in a state has another establishment in a different state or union territory, not necessarily registered, the establishments are considered as establishments of distinct persons only. Now I have a registered establishment in Tamil Nadu, has another establishment in a different state, let's say Andhra Pradesh, not necessarily registered. So let's say in that warehouse I make lesser I have not crossed like threshold limit, so I didn't register those premises. Therefore this is a registered place, that is a non-registered place, but still they are in different states, so that they should be treated as distinct persons only. Statutory provisions relating to distinct persons are contained in subsections 4 and 5 of section 25. They have been explained with examples as follows. A person who has obtained or is required to obtain more than one registration, whether in one state or union territory or more than one state or union territory, shall, in respect of each such registration, be treated as distinct persons. Mohan, a chartered accountant, has a registered head office in Delhi. He also has obtained registration in the state of West Bengal in respect of his newly opened branch office. Mohan's registrations under GST under same PAN in West Bengal and Delhi shall be treated as distinct persons. Further, where a person who has obtained or is required to obtain registration in one state or union territory in respect of an establishment has an establishment in another state or union territory, whether registered or not, then such establishments shall be treated as establishment of distinct persons. Rishabh Enterprises, a registered supplier, owns an air-conditioned restaurant in Virar, Maharashtra. It has opened a liquor shop in Raipur, Uttarakhand for trading of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Since supply of alcoholic liquor or for human consumption in Uttarakhand is a non-taxable supply, Rishabh Enterprises is not required to obtain registration with respect to the same in Uttarakhand. In this case, air-conditioned restaurant in Maharashtra and liquor shop, though unregistered in Uttarakhand, shall be treated as establishments of different persons, distinct persons. Supply by Maharashtra restaurant to Uttarakhand shop in course or furtherance of business, even without consideration, will qualify as supply. Third point, stock transfers or branch transfers qualify as supply. So here first we saw related persons, then we saw who are distinct persons, and now we will see the third point under the second para of schedule 1. It is a common practice in business to transfer goods from one unit of the entity to the other units of the same entity. For instance, distribution of samples manufactured in a factory to different persons, or transfer of goods from factory to depot or showroom for sale therefrom, from one warehouse to another warehouse, from one branch to another branch, where the demand of the goods is higher. So we will stop here. This is where we were supposed to read till here. So on that note, we will wrap up this segment. We will go to the next segment. Let me update this. We have completed round 3 of this as well. Now let me go to round 2 of page number 57 to 61. Non-supplies under GST. Okay, let me begin. Segment number 3. Activities or transactions specified under Schedule 3, Section 2, Subsection 2, Section 7, Subsection 2, Clause A provides activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3 shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Schedule 3 specifies transactions or activities which shall be neither treated as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Thus, the activities or transactions specified under this schedule can be termed as non-supplies under the GST regime. In a way, it is a negative list for the purposes of taxation in GST. It is important to note that apart from the activities specified in Schedule 3, some activities have been notified by the government via different notifications which are to be considered as not supplies. Similarly, they have done through circulars also, which will be considered as non-supplies. Let us go to non-supplies listed in the Act itself, the Schedule 3, Para 1. Services by an employer to the by an employee to the employer in the course of or in relation to his employment. Further, services provided by casual worker to employer who gives wages on daily basis to the worker, or services provided by the worker in the course of employment. Casual workers employed by a construction contractor for execution of a building contract for him or services in the course of employment. Similarly, casual workers employed by a security agency for provision of security services to a client are also services in the course of employment. Only services that are provided by the employee to the employer in the course of employment are outside the realm of supply. However, services provided outside the ambit of employment for a consideration would qualify as supply. Services provided on contract basis by a person to another, that is principal to principal basis, are not services provided in the course of employment. Any amount provided by employer to employee for not joining a competing business is paid for providing the service of forbearance to act and cannot be considered for providing the services in the course of employment. Okay. Services by any court or tribunal established under any law for the time being in force. Example, explanation. The term court includes district court, high court, and supreme court. Third point, functions performed by MPs, MLAs, member of panchayats, member of municipalities, and members of other local authorities. Duties performed by any person who holds any post in pursuance of the provision of constitution in that capacity. Duties performed by President of India, Vice President of India, Prime Minister of India, Governors, Chief Justice of India, Speakers of Lok Sabha, Chief Election Commissioner, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, Chairman of Union Public Service Commission, Attorney General of India in that capacity. Duties performed by any person as a chairperson or a member or a director in a body established by the central government or state government or local authority and who is not deemed as an employee before the commencement of this clause. Services of funeral, burial, crematorium or mortuary including transportation of the deceased. Sale of land subject to paragraph 5b of schedule 2, that is sale of building subject to paragraph 5b of schedule 2 and then sale of building, that is in case where entire consideration of for sale of building received after issuance of completion certificate or after its first occupation, whichever is earlier. Point number 6, actionable claims other than specified actionable claims. Actionable claims are specifically included in the definition of goods under section 2 clause 52. However, this para of schedule 3 specifically excludes actionable claims other than specified actionable claims from the ambit of definition of supply. Co-joint reading of the said provisions implies that only specified actionable claims are treated as supply. All other actionable claims are outside the ambit of definition of supply. Now the question arises, what are the specified actionable claims? Specified actionable claim means the actionable claim involved in or by way of betting, casinos, gambling, horse racing, lottery, or online money gaming. Section 2, clause 102A. Online money gaming means online gaming in which players pay or deposit money or money's worth, including digital assets, in the expectation of winning money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets, in any event, including game, scheme, competition, or any other activity or process, whether or not its outcome or performance is based on skill, chance, or both, and whether the same is permissible or otherwise under any other law for the time being in force. Online gaming means offering of a game on the internet or an electronic network and includes online money gaming. Some of the other examples of actionable claims are right to recover insurance money, claim for arrears of rent, claims for future rents if these can be assigned, unsecured loans, unsecured debentures, bills of exchange, promissory notes, bank guarantee, fixed deposit receipt, right to the benefit of contract, etc. These are not considered as supply of goods or services. Next segment, non-supplies wide notification. Government is empowered to notify the activities or transactions undertaken by the central government, a state government, or any local authority in which They are engaged as public authorities as the activities or transactions which shall be treated as neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Till now, following activities have been covered under the clause. Activity in relation to panchayat or municipality functions, services of any activity in relation to a function entrusted to a panchayat or under or to a municipality of the constitution are treated neither as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. Okay. Grant of alcoholic liquor license. Services by way of grant of alcoholic liquor license by the state government are treated neither as supply of goods nor as a supply of service. Such license is granted against consideration in the form of license fee or application fee or by whatever name it is called. This special dispensation is applicable only to supply of service by way of grant of liquor license by the state government as an agreement between center and states. Now from here we will start our new portion. We have completed, yes, till here we completed yesterday. Now let us read round 1 of how many ever we will be able to do. Hence, this is not applicable or has no precedence value in relation to grant of other licenses and privileges for other licenses and privileges for a fee in other situations where GST is payable. It may be noted that services provided by the government to business entities, including by way of grant of privileges, licenses, mining rights, natural resources such as spectrum, etc., against payment of consideration in the form of fee, royalty, or taxable under GST. Tax is required to be paid by the business entities on such services under reverse charge. Supplies, non-supplies clarified by way of circular. Okay, interstate movement of various modes of conveyance. Interstate movement of various modes of conveyance between distinct persons, including trains, buses, trucks, tankers, trailers, vessels, containers, aircrafts, carrying goods or passengers or both, or for repairs and maintenance, except in cases where such movement is for further supply of the same conveyance, shall be treated as neither as supply of goods nor as a supply of service and therefore not leviable to GST, IGST. Okay, interstate movement of various modes of conveyance, except in cases where such movement is for further supply of the same conveyance, for carrying goods or passengers or both, or for repairs and maintenance. However, applicable CGST, SGST, IGST as the case may be shall be leviable on repairs and maintenance done for such conveyance. Okay, interstate movement of rigs, tools and spares and all goods on wheels like cranes. Above circular shall mutatis mutandis apply to interstate movement of rigs, tools, spares and all goods on wheels like cranes, except in cases where movement of such goods is for further supply of the same goods. In such interstate movement shall neither be considered as supply of goods or supply of service, and consequently no IGST would be applicable on such movements. In this context, it is also reiterated that applicable CGST, SGST, IGST as the case may be is leviable on repairs and maintenance done for such goods. Circular 21/21 2017, GST dated 22 November 2017. Which of the following activities are considered neither as supply of goods nor as supply of service? Interstate movement of trucks between distinct persons for repairs and maintenance. No, it will be considered as supply. Grant of mining rights by government to business. No, mining rights is covered under GST. Only this alcoholic liquor consumption, alcoholic liquor license only, it is exempt. Services provided by an employer to the employee. Services provided by an employer to the employee. Yeah, it is not considered as supply. I think that gift 50,000 limit is there, isn't it? And then lottery. Yeah, lottery is also considered as service only. I don't think so. It is excluded from this thing. You can see here. actionable claim. So lottery is actionable claim, therefore it will be considered as supply only. In the preceding paras, we have discussed how to determine whether a given activity or transaction constitutes a supply. Once an activity or transaction qualifies as supply, one needs to determine whether the same is leviable to GST or not. Though the provisions related to levy and the collection of GST have been discussed at length in the next chapter, a brief idea of the same is provided here. Supply leviable to GST. For a supply to attract GST, primarily two additional conditions need to be satisfied. These are: a supply must be made by a taxable person and a supply must be a taxable supply. These two additional conditions have been discussed hereunder. A supply to attract GST should be made by a taxable person. A supply attracting GST can be made to a non-taxable person also. Restriction of being a taxable person is only on the supplier, whereas the recipient can be either taxable or a non-taxable person. Okay, the meaning of taxable person. A taxable person is a person who is registered or liable to be registered under section 22 or section 24. Hence, a person who is liable to be registered but does not take a registration and remains an unregistered person shall be construed as a taxable person. Similarly, a person not liable to be registered but has got himself registered by taking a voluntary registration is also considered as a taxable person. Okay, what is a taxable supply? For a supply to attract GST, the supply must be taxable. Taxable supply has been broadly defined and means any supply of goods or services or both which is leviable to tax under GST law, section 2, clause 108. On the other hand, exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which will attract nil rate of tax or which may be wholly exempt from tax under section 11 of the GST Act or under section 6 of the IGST Act and includes a non-taxable supply. Exemptions may be provided to the specified goods or services or to a specified category of person or entities making supply. Now let us talk about composite and mixed supplies. We will read it till here we will read till here and we will close for the day. Section 8, two clauses. A composite supply comprising two or more supplies, one of which is a principal supply, shall be treated as supply of such principal supply. A mixed supply comprising of two or more supplies shall be treated as supply of that particular supply that attracts highest rate of tax. Okay. GST is payable on goods or services or both at the notified rates. Classification of any supply, whether as goods or services, the category of goods or services, is essential to determine the rate at which GST is going to be charged on that supply. The application of rates poses no problem if the supply is of individual goods or individual services which is clearly identifiable and such goods or services are subject to a particular rate of tax. Okay. So from here we will continue tomorrow. So we have come to the end of today's study session. I think today it's a little longer than how it used to be. So we have studied from page number 2.62 to 2.65. We were able to study 4 pages today. Study date October 16th October 2025, and this will be due tomorrow. Okay, on that note, we will have a quick estimation of what are we going to study tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have to read round 4 of again e-way bill, 4 pages, and round 3 of supply under GST, 10 pages, and then round 2 of supply under GST, whatever we read today, and then we will read another 4 to 5 pages based on the time availability. Thank you for joining today's session. I hope it was useful. I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.